Hello students, this is a quick video to illustrate the use of types with primitive variables in Java. This program, accessible at this webpage address, when it runs, you'll quickly see that it's not interactive, but it does place a player, which we'll consider that to be a mouse, in a one-dimensional mouse cage or maze. Anyway, the mouse is, well, about a third of the way in this little maze or cage. If I change the value, player column, the value that's being stored in the variable player column, if I change it to 1 and re-execute and rerun the program, the mouse is further over to the left. If I change the column to about 15 and run the program, well, you'll see it's further over to the right. If I choose a ridiculously large number like 150, I think there is error handling in this program. We'll soon see. Yes, it says consult the teacher, me, Mr. Minnick, for help. Anyway, back to a reasonable number 5. So let's inspect what we were just making changes to. Player call is the name of a variable. In Java, variables must be declared before they're used. This variable is used at some point, like right here. It's also used right here and probably other places. So at the top of the class, in the area where there are declaration statements, above the area where you'll see methods, such as clear screen, display header. Those are methods with sets of curly braces. Up in the variable declaration area, variables must be declared, which means you need to associate a type, which we sometimes call a data type. You must associate a type with the name of the variable by typing the keyword for the type in front of the variable name. For now, I'm just telling you to put static there. All of these variable declaration statements have the keyword static. We'll learn more about that later. It's good style, and sometimes it's a required element for Java to actually initialize the variable to a value. So I'm trying to get away with here in a second to declare the variable player call as an int, which we'll talk about shortly, with a type. Int is the type. Anyway, I'm trying to do it without setting it equal to 5. And when I run the program, it works. Now it looks like it's defaulting to 0. So I'm going to, well, just realize that in this situation, it defaults to 0. That's not usually safe behavior for you as a coder to take advantage of the fact that sometimes, but not always, I'll explain later in our course, there's automatic initialization to values such as 0. Anyway, I'm changing it back to 5. Do not put double quotes around this value because then it would be a string literal instead of what we call a numeric literal. A literal is a specific value that's being stored from right hand to the left hand side into a variable. So that is a string literal, which will not work, excuse me, because you're trying to take a string and put it into a variable that you're contradictorily declaring to be an int, which means it can only store integers. The variable player row, player call, and even max rows up there, they have to be whole numbers, integers. As opposed to the other data type that you should know, double. Double is for decimal numbers. You can store as something that has a 0.0, a literal, numeric literal value that ends with 0.0 or 0.000. You can do that into a player temp. It would still work. But even if you don't type out explicitly 0.0, it's still considered to be 0.0 and not 0.1 or 0.2. You cannot type say 0.0 here. This is illegal because it's an int, and it's, even though 0.0 is meaningless as far as like an amount of money, it will not compile, it will not work. So you cannot type the 0.0 there when initializing a int typed variable to a value. Okay, the other primitive data type that you should know is Boolean. And Boolean can only be equal to either the keyword false or the keyword true. Do not capitalize them like you might see in other computer languages. Not for Java, they must be typed lowercase. Boolean, of course, is taken after George Boole, who's passed away now, but led to lots of great computer science theory. Boolean. And string, we will talk about in more depth later in this course. It is not considered a primitive data type like int, double, and Boolean. Notice it's not blue, it's black in this replit environment. But it does start with a capital S, which means it's a class. So it's a type, but it's from a class and not built into Java, in which case we call them primitive types when they're built into Java. String is sort of like an add-on. Again, more about that later in the school year. Have a great day.